Hey, it's Liz D'Alto, and this is the Untamed the Wild Soul Woman podcast. From body image, sex, spirituality, money and relationships, to motherhood, creativity, business, communication, and desire, Untamed the Wild Soul Woman is the place to come for real stories and powerful advice to help you reclaim and redefine womanhood in the 21st century. Elizabeth D'Alto here, your host for the Untamed the Wild Soul Woman podcast, with a quick announcement before we dive into today's episode. The book is officially out. So many of you I know have already downloaded it, already left reviews, already shared all over social media. So a quick thank you so much. It is no longer available for free on Amazon unless you have Kindle Unlimited, but it's only $2.99. So go ahead and download the book if you haven't already. And I have another exciting announcement to go with that. Over the course of the month of December, I am taking applications and doing interviews for a 6-month mentorship called the Untame Yourself Women's Leadership Council. That'll take place from January to June in 2016. So if that is something that you might be interested in, head on over to untameyourself.com/mentorship and fill out an application. This is for women who just want 2016 to not just be the best year of their lives, but to really hunker down in 4 main areas: your health, your wealth, your relationships, and your spirituality. If you're someone who listens to this podcast and you have questions, you want to go deeper, you've been feeling called or pulled in some way, shape, or form to not just listen to other people's stories, but actually create your own success stories, starting now, right? No longer waiting. Go ahead and fill out that application. If you have any questions, you can email us at hello@wildsoulmovement.com. And I look forward to seeing who comes together for this group in 2016. On to today's show. Elizabeth D'Alto here, your host for the Untamed the Wild Soul Woman podcast. And we are smack dab in the middle of Man-vember, where I have invited some really powerful, inspiring men on the show for a change, to give us women a little different perspective, perhaps to be an opportunity to invite your partner or your male loved ones in on the conversations that you enjoy listening to already so much. And today's guest is davidji, who I found out about through a former guest who many of you already know and love, and that is Terry Cole. David is actually one of Terry's mentors, specifically around meditation. So we were chatting before we got on, and I just thought that was amazing. I wrote it down so I wouldn't get it wrong, but David has over 500 guided meditations. He's recorded one guided meditation every single week since 2010. That is just prolific. He's written 3 books. His most recent book is called Destressifying. So we are definitely going to talk about that, because I'm sure that's something we could all use a little. Even those of us who think we're calm in our lives probably could use a little de-stressifying. So thank you so much. How are you?
Thank you. I am so excited to be part of Man-vember. I can't even tell you. I've never been part of Man-vember before. So
because I made it up.
Right. And I made up de-stressifying. You know, it wasn't a word till we made it up, and now it's part of the lexicon.
It's part of the lexicon.
I'm great. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for including me in what I think is such an important message and vision that you're bringing out into the world.
Thank you. And you know what's really fun? So David, also, we could have done this in person because we both live in Carlsbad, California, and I know you have a Hay House radio show, and you're the reason I call this the sweet spot of the universe. Because nice. I remember when I told Terry, I'm moving to Carlsbad, she goes, "Oh, the sweet spot of the universe." Because I guess you say that in your is that how you intro your show, coming from?
When I moved out here in 2003, and I'm from Queens, so I'm from New York, so it was all brand new to me. I came out here in July, and of course it was gorgeous. And I was like, oh my God, this is one of the most beautiful places on the planet. And where I was living at the time, I was about a mile from the beach. So I was breathing ocean air, and you feel that ocean air, that cool breeze of ocean air just coming right in off the Pacific. And I'm about a mile from the mountains, and on the other side of the mountains is the desert. So that warmth comes in over there. And I said, they meet right here, right now. So I have a funny story about that. Years later, I was working with Oprah, and I was taking a walk with her. And I said, Oprah, this is the sweet spot of the universe. And I gave her that whole spiel. We're a mile from the ocean. We're breathing that ocean air. I said, come on, Oprah, take a deep breath in. And she's like placating me, takes a deep breath in, looks at me. And then, I said, we're a mile from the desert here. That warmth that you feel, that's the desert. I said, you feel that warmth? I said, this is the sweet spot. And I got down on my knees and I started patting the ground. I said, right here is the sweet spot. And she said, davidji, I am the sweet spot of the universe.
Oh, that is a great story.
So it's either Carlsbad, Carlsbad or Oprah. Make the pick.
That's unbelievable. So I ask every single man this question. What do you love about being a man?
What do I love about being a man? Well, I'm not just a man, but I'm in a man in a world awash with women. And so the profession that I was in banking for quite a while and in finance, was at the time was exclusively men. And now I'm in the world of spirit and personal development, which is primarily women because they are the more sensitive. So being a man awash in a world of women has actually allowed me to get a more tender heart. It's allowed me to grow. It's allowed me to awaken my divine feminine. It's allowed me to really celebrate the divine mother. And I grew up in a house with women and girls and mom, and so I've always been very, very comfortable in that kind of environment, and that's allowed me to really honor women because I believe women are the more well, scientifically, even in my book De-stressifying, I talk about how women are actually the more sensitive of the species, physically more sensitive, emotionally more sensitive, intellectually more sensitive, and more likely to experience tenderness because they're more aware. They're more aware of their bodies. They're more aware of the emotional shifts and changes they go through. So I get to party with women all the time. When I go to an event, whether it's a Hay House event or a Chopra Center event or any kind of event or a Lululemon event, and the room is primarily 75% women. It's for me, it's a real opportunity for me to just like open my heart and go, oh, let me drink that in because that's just such a it's a very, very special for me to have. So I guess that's what I like most about being a man.
This is great. Let's take it in this direction, and then I'll come back to something else I want to ask you from what you just said. But
Sure.
we talk a lot about integrating masculine and feminine here because you just can't have one without the other. And
Right.
and for me, a large inspiration to what I do is to be sure that I'm always representing both. Again, this is why I'm having Manvember. But and the reason why is because I, in my own life, have experienced what happens when you don't, right? So I took this deep dive out of feeling, we talked about this being New Yorkers. I feel like New York just amplifies what you already are. So I've always been a hustler. I'm very intrinsically motivated. And when I was actually living in Manhattan, God, I was just so masculine, like so in my masculine all the time. And then I felt bad about that. So I'm like, all right, I have to go feminine. And I kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater. And I did the thing where you deny this whole really important part of yourself. So I love whenever anyone is like, it's about the integration. So as a man, and whether it's someone listening is a man or is a woman, can you talk about that, about the actual, how you integrated your feminine, or even what brought you to realizing you even had a desire or need to do that?
I guess it started when I really began on this journey. My journey began right after 9/11, where I sort of just had went on my own little walkabout, my own little eat, pray, love journey without the eat and the love. Um, uh,
So you
and,
prayed. We got it.
and I worked in the World Trade Center for a while, and so that whole part of my life was, come on, get it done, get out of the way. If the coffee's cold, you're fired. Let's keep moving.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really the world that I came out of. And as I began my journey and met Deepak and spent time in India and did all sorts of kooky stuff in search of the guru, until I realized, of course, the guru rests inside.
Mm-hmm.
That was my one of my aha moments while I was laying in a cashew forest in Kerala in southern India. But I suddenly began on this journey, and I started exploring the Sri Yantra, which is a form of meditation. It's one of the oldest symbols out there. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's one of those images where you have the triangles, the circle, a mandala with all the triangles in it. And those triangles are actually representative. The upward triangles are masculine energy and downward triangles are feminine energy. And so it's the perfect Sri Yantra always has the triangle that's in the middle facing down because that makes it 5 and 4. And so if there's one more triangle facing down, that's feminine energy. And it's that blending of Shiva and Shakti. And the blending of Shiva and Shakti, masculine and feminine, male and female, in every single moment is so powerful and so important, because if you have too much female energy, Shakti energy, you're sort of just like hanging out and holding space. And, you're just a giant womb, but there's no creation going on. And if you have just too much masculine energy, it's too much in your face power moving forward, and there is no space holding. And so that's why the beautiful blend of Shiva and Shakti, where they come together, and it helps just have a little bit extra feminine energy there, because that at least holds the space. And then you can really get the vibrational energy. And so it was really as I began my journey into this realm. And then, of course, I started teaching in, quote, the spiritual world, the yoga world, the meditation world. And suddenly it was like 9 out of 10 people were women. And I was like, why is that? And then I found out because as women's bodies change, they're they're paying a lot of attention to that. So they suddenly, they notice the hormonal, the physiological, the neurological, they notice all that stuff. And it's sort of like accepted by society, or at least acknowledged that it's okay to like get it, talk about it. And, I've growing up in a house full of women, I've been to the supermarket at 2:00 in the morning buying maxi pads with wings, as the only guy there. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm living that, the aspect of women paying attention to their bodies and noticing that their bodies are changing. And whether it's pre, post, peri, menopause, there's like a shift that really happens that needs to be honored and needs to be understood and needs to be celebrated. And so that's really when I first became aware, like, oh, there's like a whole species that really is so much more connected to their heart, their body, their mind, and their soul. And so that's why I love to celebrate women. And that's one of the reasons that really allowed me to create my own events. And my own events, they're closer to 50-50, because women always say, how come I always get there and it's like one guy in the room? And so because I train business people and because I train cops and people in the military, my classes are usually closer to 50-50. But it's interesting. And I think, show up at a yoga class, you're always going to see that, women.
Yeah, my partner is a coach, and he went through the Martha Beck school. And he said, literally, I was like one of 4 dudes among hundreds of women. So not a bad gig.
No, I love Martha Beck. She's great.
Oh, so great. She's one whose books for sure have really impacted me. So the other thing then, which you kind of answered in the process of that, but man, talk about a pendulum swing from Wall Street or World Trade Center, New York City finance to India.
Yeah.
Can you fill in some of those spaces in between for us? I know you mentioned 9/11. Was that an impetus for you?
It was sort of. I was in the sort of in the halo of 9/11. I was walking downtown in Soho. For those of you who don't know, that's southern Manhattan, south of Houston, and past a row of cardboard boxes that people were living in. And as I was walking past this box, this guy reaches his hand out, grabs my pant leg, and he really grabbed me, and he said, "What's going to be on your tombstone?"
Ooh.
And I was like, and we're staring into each other's eyes, and I'm like, and I sort of just kept walking, and I was in a daze after that, and it made me rethink every single why am I here? What's this whole purpose? What's my dharma? What's this? I probably wasn't using the word dharma at the time. And I was like, why am I here? What's my meaning? What's my legacy? What am I contributing? What's the value that I'm adding? What's this all about? And that I came home that night and I said to my wife, listen, I can't do this anymore. I need to find a deeper meaning and a deeper purpose in everything that I do. And so she's the one who said, oh, this guy, Deepak Chopra, he's in Oxford, England. You should go check him out. He's doing a meditation retreat, and it's really intimate. And of course, no one was flying after 9/11. So I quit my job and I headed off to hang out with Deepak. And it was so intimate that we became friends.
Cool.
And that allowed me to really spend some really quality time with him. And that was really the spark that I had. And then after I hung out with him for a while, he had said, now you need to go to India. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. I'm very obedient when people tell me
to. Right? Sounds like it. Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God you are.
That thing, whatever you say. And so then I just began that journey, really in search of deeper meaning. And it wasn't until I was laying in about 5 months later in southern India, when I was laying in this hammock reading the Bhagavad Gita, this ancient Indian text, chapter 2, verse 48, Yogastha Kuru Karmani. It's what Krishna says to Arjuna. How should you live your life? Yogastha, established in union, established in the present moment. Kuru, then perform karmani, action. So establish yourself in the present moment, get still, and then perform action. And that just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, oh, the guru rests inside. Here I am searching all over the world for the guru, and it's right inside me.
That's the trick. That's the trick.
And, that was like a major awakening for me. And then all I wanted to do was meditate. And when I got back to New York, a friend of mine said, dude, all you do now is sit around and meditate. You should teach other people to meditate. And I was like, dude, I'm from New York. I don't care about anyone else's meditation.
But that's actually why people will listen to you.
Right. And he was like, well, that's perfect, because if you really want to learn something, learn to teach it. And just you don't have to worry about anybody else. Take it to the next level. So then I dived in and I reconnected with Deepak, and he introduced me to, the most amazing beings on the planet that I could imagine. And through that journey of working with him and Dr. David Simon, the co-founder, and exploring Sufism and Buddhism and Tantrism and Vedanta and Advaita and all these other kooky kinds of chakra work and heart opening and Thich Nhat Hanh and Pema Chodron and all these people who Osho, who I believe in so deeply, have such great messages. That's where I sort of went like, oh, you know what? Now I really want to share this with other people, because there's like some cool stuff here, and I can really help people with this. And that's how the whole thing unfolded.
And I love that. I love that you honor your teachers. I feel like I see a lot in the world, like personal development, spirituality. There's a lot of people who are sharing things that came from someone else. You're like, give credit where it's due. But I also love too that you've taken all of those things and assimilated it into your own. And
that's what I do in my teacher training too. I call it the Masters of Wisdom and Meditation teacher training, because I want to expose all of my students or teachers in training to all of the vast resources that I have taken in. But I believe, don't get stuck in a box.
Yes.
You don't have to be, I love the Maharishi, but that's not the only way. And I adore Deepak, but there are other expansive ways to connect with you, with the stillness and silence that rests within. So that just gives me the opportunity to take a thread from each of those masters that resonates with me, and then I weave those together, and that's created my philosophy, which, as long as I keep reading and studying, will continue to evolve.
I love that so much, because I do the same thing, and I appreciate that so much. And you said something in there. I really enjoyed that analogy you just made about the weaving, but something. Oh, this is what you said about it not being the only way, and that's one of the reasons why I'm actually loving having this podcast so much. And something I've been saying a lot lately is, you can't make a choice from a menu of options that you don't know exists. Right. So by just getting to introduce my community to so many different people, they can go, oh, that one was for me, or I did not like that one, but yes, that one thing that person said, so amazing. So, you may or may not have an answer for this, but I know you've studied so much. Are there any? Oh, we have little furry guests. Sometimes we get kid guests. Sometimes we get barking. I live right by the train here, so this isn't. If you're someone listening who really needs like pristine sound quality, you got to listen to another podcast, because life is happening on this one. But
you should know that all proceeds from my first book, Secrets of Meditation, go to charity, and primarily shelter rescues right here in Southern California.
Good.
Hey guys, come on.
Thank you. But are there any of those? It sounded like that moment of the guy grabbing your pant leg was a big one. But can you remember any moments of a place, like you were at a certain place, maybe struggling with a certain thing, and like that one piece of wisdom that you were like, what? Like maybe it was so simple you couldn't believe you never knew it before. Is that like too vast of a question for someone who's studied as much as you have?
Probably when we get to like, in these teachings, there's always, people who are asking the question, what is enlightenment? What is enlightenment? What is enlightenment? And I probably had a whole bunch of different aha moments through various periods of time in my life. where they go, "Oh, that was it. Oh, that was it." But one of my favorite moments ever has to be when James Hetfield of Metallica was the one who brought me to, when I traveled to India on my first, journey um, to try to find the guru. I went up to Dharamsala. I went up to see His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and he wasn't there that day. And like I didn't even know that exists. I thought he just like hangs out there and sort of like sits on a throne all day. And I was like, what's that about? So it wasn't until like 10 years later that that James Hetfield, who's actually a very spiritual and loving and sweet and amazing person who meditates and blesses his food before he eats it, he introduced me to the Dalai Lama. Was up speaking in I guess at the Greek Theater up in Berkeley. And so he invited me to come up there. And so that had to be when a lot of people say like enlightenment is embracing polar opposites, when you can embrace like, I love that and I hate that simultaneously, or just two polar extremes. And so there I was sitting next to James, and His Holiness was like there, and it was like the perfect communing, showing like the yin and yang of every single moment. That everything is all included. So that's one of them. I've had so many.
I'm sure, but that's
really,
what a great
really,
story.
But that's sort of like, no, it wasn't my quest into India where I met the Dalai Lama. It was Metallica.
The friggin' Dalai Lama wasn't there that day. I don't know why that makes me, it reminds me of like if you go to a store that you thought was open and it's like a Wednesday, there's no reason, but it's like the personal, and it says closed, and you're like, what the hell? But that happened to you with the Dalai Lama.
Right.
Fine. So I have a question. It sounds like you've worked with some like really impressive, incredible people. Do you find that either like the more creative or the more intelligent or the more like expressed, really, I think it probably has to do with the expression and the visibility and how much people are putting themselves out there. Do you find that people in positions like that actually need meditation more than others? Or...
Oh, I think it's like anything else. I think we all can benefit from connecting to the stillness and silence that rests within, because I believe what I'd like to think and what I'd like to see is that there's a more magnificent version of each one of us, and we can access that through connecting to the present moment and connecting to the stillness and silence. So although I have been honored to really work with some amazing, famous people, successful people, celebrity type people, who don't necessarily have the tools, that's really what I'm trying to translate. When I was working in the world of finance, it wasn't that people shouldn't work in the world of banking or finance or Wall Street. I didn't have the tools. I didn't even know there were tools.
Right.
And had I had the tools, I wouldn't have suddenly gone off on my eat, pray, love thing. I would have used the tools. And so what I find is that people who are really highly successful in their fields, usually the thing that got them to be successful was focus, effort, and hard work. Dedication, really bringing their A game, bringing a big game to that moment. And so they don't have the tool, which meditation is, because that's pure surrender. And so I've really found some of the most intelligent people I know to be some of the hardest to teach, because they're like, oh, intellectually, I get it, I understand it, I don't actually have to sit and do it. Thank you very much. And if you work 18-hour days, 7 days a week, whether you're on tour, whether you're just, have a crazy job, you also are of that mindset, work hard and focus, effort and focus, effort and focus, effort and focus. And that doesn't work for this. This is the exact opposite. We could come out of the womb and have all that effort focus, and be rock stars. We could be the most amazing beings on the planet. So busy, so totally, successful and fulfilled. And we don't even have that gear or know about it. That like, oh, you mean the coast gear? The let me take a breath gear, the pull back the bow gear, the breathing of the mind gear, the pattern interrupt, the space between the thought, the space between the word, the space between the action gear. Don't know what that one is. And so I don't know that more successful people need it more, but I think um, any high achiever probably does not even know how to sit still or
Right.
to just sit or to allow, because they're like waiting. They like close their eyes and they're like waiting for the Buddha to appear. And they're like, hey,
Right.
dude, I said the mantra twice. The Buddha didn't come. What's that about? Because they're used to work hard, bang it, and get it done. And so that, for me, that was a real aha moment. The first time I started teaching people, and I go like, you have your private plane, and you have like gold records everywhere. I'm not talking about James right now,
Right.
but your private plane, your gold records, you're doing everything, and you don't even know what it's like to connect to the stillness and silence that rests within. And you're one of the most creative beings on the planet. And I've had that same conversation with CEOs of financial services companies and law enforcement and special forces and, really super, amazingly powerful women in the world. And it just blows me away. But of course, I go back and go, oh, I didn't have those tools either. And there wasn't someone like me at the time. I wasn't connected to someone like me who could translate that, and it all
Right.
comes down to the translation.
Yes.
There's 8 billion people on the planet, and I think when we die and get to the top of the mountain, we're going to look down and we'll see, oh, there were actually 8 billion paths to get here. But I think that we have to allow that. I think there's probably only one goal. It's love.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just a little more love, maybe a little more love after that. And but everyone's got a different access point. Some people can only access that by understanding the science of something. Other people want to intellectualize it. Other people want to tactily feel it. Other people need to read it. Other people need to watch videos. People need to hear stuff. And so we all access, and there are people who go like, dude, you're like total New York. I could tell you New York's in your accent. There's some people who don't want to listen to my voice, and other people say, oh, please keep talking. So, I mean, everybody needs to find their space. Everyone needs to find their access point to the truth. I believe there's only one truth, and I believe each one of us is using our own version or our own expression to get there. So that's like the beautiful journey that we're all on, and that's why, when people say, "Oh, I love your voice," can you make another meditation? And then there's someone who says, "Oh, I love what you wrote. Can you write more about that?" So it all depends on how we go. You're reaching people who can access your world, and I'm doing the same thing. And that's why there's 10 million of us out there talking different things, and some people aren't paying attention to it at all, and other people are going totally totes.
Right. And it's always interesting to me how I can hear something in so many different ways, but it takes that one way, the way that one person said it, for me to go, oh, I got it now.
Right. And that was only like the 30th time you heard it, but not in that way.
That's exactly right. And again, that's why we keep having these conversations. I was laughing. I don't think this was a podcast conversation. I think it was actually a phone conversation I was having with a friend. Do you watch any TV? Is that something you do?
I am a TV. I love TV. I advocate TV. I recommend TV to people. I have my favorite shows.
Tell me your favorite shows.
Well, I guess the standouts have to be, I'm a big like Game of Thrones, mm-hmm. Homeland, The Good Wife. There was a time when I watched The Mentalist. I don't do that anymore. I'm on Netflix all the time. I'm trying to absorb, constant stuff. I even watch a lot of Kardashians. I watch things that other people, when I tell them, they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry you even told me that." So I watched this season of The Bachelorette. There are just some things I'm riveted to. And I was just on a flight and I watched Pitch Perfect 2 on the plane.
So did I. It was hilarious.
I thought it was great.
I got shushed. I got shushed because I was laughing so hard.
So like I told a friend of mine, I said, I saw the greatest movie, Pitch Perfect 2. So like, come on, we'll go to Apple TV and we can watch, Pitch Perfect 1. So we're like watching it for like 10 minutes and this person hadn't seen Pitch Perfect 2. And they're like, I'm going to leave you now. Back a couple of hours and then you can keep watching Pitch Perfect 1. So I like all sorts of things. I've seen every single Law and Order, from Criminal Intent to Special Victims to every regular Law and Order. I watch just a lot of crazy and kooky stuff. So I try to absorb at least 4 hours of TV a day.
Oh
I
my
think it's
God.
really, I
We're
think
going
it's
to talk
really.
some more about this. The reason I asked is because it was going back to that thing where it's like you need to hear something several times. There was an episode, so Modern Family is one of my favorite shows because it's
I've
hysterical.
seen that a couple of times.
And there's an episode where the husband comes home, he just had lunch, and he starts telling his wife, like, oh my God, you have to go to this place. You have got to try this wedge salad. And then it goes to, you know how some shows have the thing where people are talking to the camera? She's like, can't tell you how many times I've told Phil about that wedge salad. And he just like didn't care till he went there with someone else. It was like, oh my God.
Right.
But all right, so I love this because I think, again, I observe, and you know what? It's actually pretty local around here. It was kind of a tough adjustment for me when I decided to move here to San Diego. There's like a large spiritual community here, and there's a lot of, for lack of a better term, I notice a lot of a spiritual bypassing that goes on. And one of the things that I find to be really frustrating or just is incongruency. And so I think there's a lot of people who think like, oh, like a term that I've heard often is garbage in, garbage out. So if you watch TV, like you're taking that in and then like that's going to affect you. So I love to hear that someone like yourself watches so much TV. And I love that the way you articulate it, which I have a feeling is intentional. I intentionally absorb 4 hours a day. Tell me more about that. Why?
I've learned a lot from TV. There's some shows that have such brilliant character development, and I can't be out constantly, and I need some downtime as well. So as much as I love walking on the beach every morning with Peaches the Buddha Princess, my LA rescue, and as much as I love just sitting and breathing, ocean air and meditating and doing all, teaching and doing all riding bikes and doing all hiking, doing all those kinds of things, I spend there's certain things I do every single day. Every day I write 3,000 words, no matter what. That's been something that I've done for 15 years. Every day I read at least 50 pages of something, in addition to whatever I'm scrolling online. And every day I want to absorb 4 hours of TV. Why? Because it, the other night I was watching some weird Donald Trump stuff. It's so entertaining.
So entertaining.
And so I learn more about people. I learn about people that I otherwise wouldn't be connecting to. I learn about, even if it's just the creativity of a screenwriter and a director creating something, but watching how a character flows that. I'm into that. And so I like to go to concerts. I like to have music come into me. And by that, I am a child of the television era. And I've always felt very, very comfortable, just sitting down. I try to record everything because I can't watch like a second. I can watch 4 hours of TV without blinking, but I can't watch 10 seconds of a commercial.
Yeah.
So,
what a great age we live in now that you don't have to, huh?
Right.
Miracle.
So I have, just take something like The Good Wife, which I don't know if anybody watches, but, Alicia Florrick, she plays the wife of Chris Noth, who was in Sex and the City back 100 years ago. Right, Mr. Big. And so she's a lawyer, and she's, running for attorney general. And just like, she's a mom. She's a divorced mom. She's dealing, she has a big fat glass of red wine every night. She does not meditate when she comes home. She's like on it. She stays always true. She never lies. She's always authentic. I think I've watched that now for like 5 years, 5 seasons, and I've seen that character develop and mold. And I don't know that I have that person in my life on a consistent basis, but I know that I can access that and understand that whole scenario at a higher level. So there are just things I like to watch things, and people say, "Oh, but aren't you absorbing the violence?" Yeah, I probably am. But I'm from Queens, so that stuff is probably a lot more violent to people who grew up in Encinitas than grew up in Queens.
Yeah.
So I like to touch everything. I don't want to. It's interesting. I had Lieutenant of the police department, the San Francisco Police Department, Jack Hart, on my Hay House radio show, because I've spent a lot of time training cops and working with cops. And after that show was over, I got about 500 emails that said, that was the most powerful experience. Thank you for helping these warriors, these guardian warriors who are out there protecting us, and they need to figure out how to interact more normally, with the world. And then I got this email from someone and said I had to stop instantly upon hearing that. That was disgusting, and I can't engage in that conversation. And this is theoretically or supposedly from. Can you hear that?
Yeah, trash.
It's garbage day.
Cool.
Sorry.
Great.
Yeah,
Like I said, real life is happening on the show. Deal with it.
One here.
Deal with it.
Right. This is Liz Raw. So, she said, I can't handle that. I found that it was too bothersome. And I'm thinking, really? Is hearing a cop talk about how he learned to meditate and how he teaches other cops to meditate and connect to the present moment so they don't put a gun in their mouth and so that they can really protect and serve and not have these awkward, weird moments that we're experiencing in our society, is that really a disturbing thing? I think it's an awakening thing. And so I believe in all things. I'm not saying there's great quality in all things.
Yeah.
But we need the dark and the light, or else we're just living in dreamland. No more should we live just in the dark, in the light, than we should just live in darkness. And so, I'm not a believer of good or evil. I don't believe in the concepts. They just don't even mean anything to me. I don't even know what that means.
Me neither.
But I understand that there's pain and there's bliss, and there's simple and there's complicated, and there's heavy and there's light, and energy's energy, and I want to touch all energy because if I touch it all, I can talk about it, and if I can't touching it, if I'm not touching it, I can't have a conversation about it.
I'm writing that down. If I touch it all, I could talk about it.
And then maybe pick the thread from that thing. Maybe I learn, like, oh, you know what? That was so dark, but I actually learned something about it. Maybe something not to do. Mm-hmm. Maybe something, a certain way to think or perceive or belief system to adopt or reject. But I want to touch it. I want to feel the pain of life as well as its tender kisses.
I love that so much because, this is something I had a woman 2 summers ago. I went to a tribal dance party and my friends and I painted our faces. And when I posted the picture, she had messaged me. She's half African American, and she's like, Liz, like, as someone in your community, I just felt like I had to say something that was really offensive. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with racial appropriation, and she sent this, and this was my mistake, right? This is one of those like, as soon as it happens, you wish you could unsend that, but I don't, because I learned. I said to her, I don't know if it would be valuable to you, and this is someone also important. I already had a coaching relationship with her. So the going back and forth of feedback, that was open and there was permission there. Right. But I did say, I don't know if this is useful to consider why this is so triggering for you. Because like she even said in her message, I know this isn't your intention. I'm like, so if that wasn't my intention, I'm wondering. And then that was it. That was it. Me saying that to her, she flipped out. She told me I was like gaslighting her. And you don't say, when a person of color tells you that you're being offensive, you listen. And I'm like, yeah, but who gets to appropriate the word tribe, right? Like it's applicable in all these places. But anyway, where I was going with that is it was so valuable to just remind me that I do have a lot of privilege. And this is one of the reasons why, like you were talking about engaging with things, I might not have this experience in my own life, but I can certainly engage in other ways so that I'm not just completely ignorant that this shit is real in the world. It might not be real in my world, but it exists.
Right. It's a big world. It's a big universe, and it contains everything. It contains every single piece of every single thing. So we can either, stay in one spot, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I want to touch it all.
Yes.
I want to breathe the air from every corner of the galaxy, and I want to know what it tastes like and smells like and feels like, and not all of it is pleasant.
Not all of it's pleasant, and that's allowed. Last year when Marianne Williamson was running for Congress, I actually saw her speak at like 3 or 4 different events, and one of the things that she said that really stuck with me is we can't be selectively conscious. And I was like, oh, I'm so selectively conscious. It was like, you got me, Marianne. Because that is the truth. And she was saying that because so many people, like in her audience, like, well, just for lack of a better term, call it like the spiritual, personal development world, very apathetic. about politics. Just choose not to engage. And like, I'm raising my hand, like that's me. I've never, people may or may not, might lose listeners over this, but I've never even voted in an election. So, but when she said that, I'm like, damn, like I felt called out importantly. Like this, she's right.
Yeah, well, I think, everybody doesn't have to vote, but you sort of lose your right to complain if you don't.
Well, and I don't do that, I will say, but I agree with
So,
you.
you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that it's so critical, but when we look at some place like a Ferguson, which is just like Ferguson is so important because there's so many different lessons that we can learn from that. But one of the biggest lessons is that 15% of that whole area of Ferguson, only 15% is minority represented. So there's only 15% of the members of the city council, of all the city boards, of the borough, of that whole process. It's only 15%, and that's like, whoa, you have a pretty much a black population with a white police force, and the black members of that area need to get higher representation there to even the score. We can smack the cops and we can scold the police and we can change all the rules and we can do all that stuff. But for me, that's really what came out of this more so than anything. Get some better representation on there. Everyone, the streets are filled with people. The population is 85% black there. Come on, get out and be represented instead of having, not being represented there. So we have opportunities to, I think we have to engage at every single level. And we can all be outraged about stuff. Stuff's going to push all of our buttons, and some rightfully and some not rightfully. But I think we have an obligation to, if we're going to like complain or whine or protest or picket, then you have to participate. You can't sort of passively participate and then complain when it doesn't go your way on any level. That's forget local politics. That's the biggest politics that are out there as well.
There's a big distinction in something you just said that I think is brilliant. People, again, like even the word activism, right, sounds like it's not passive. But if all you're doing is raging, yelling, and holding signs, you're not actually doing anything. Sure, raising awareness, right? But how are people actually affecting change? Such an interesting topic.
Yeah. And the way our society works, guess what? You think Marianne Williamson's been lying in bed at night waiting to run for Congress? She already created the Department of Peace. She probably figured that was it. My work here is done. I'm this guy. No one ever even considered that. And she ultimately, it's that famous Popeye the Sailor Man line. That's all I can stands, and I can't stands no more. And so she probably said, that's it. I can either vote and vote and vote and not get heard, or I can actually run. So there's so many different levels that people can do. And I'm not trying to advocate that everyone get out there and run, but I say vote with your money, vote with your feet, vote with your attention, vote with where you go, vote with where you put your attention on and the things you participate in, and they will grow and blossom and bloom.
Yeah, and even in that concept too of voting with your dollars. I mean, we live in such a society that's economy based that's a great way to actually be heard is what you spend your money on and what you choose not to spend your money on. So I don't want to end without talking about de-stressifying. Even just saying it makes me feel good. Tell us whatever you want to tell us about it. The concept and the book, whatever feels good to share.
Well, I define stress as how you respond when your needs are not met. And between 8 and 15 times a day, our needs are not met. And it's what you do with that information that becomes the fabric of your life. And so there are 5 things that I identified, which if we put our attention on these things, we will have less stress. Our needs will be met at a higher level. We will love more, be happier, be more fulfilled, step into our power, own our impact, and just soar. And so those are awareness, and obviously one of the tools of awareness is meditation. Identifying, prioritizing, and really understanding what our needs are, our four basic needs: attention, affection, appreciation, and acceptance. How we get those met, when they're not met, how we respond. That's most of our issues. 90% of all of our issues is not having one of those four needs of the heart met: attention, affection, appreciation, or acceptance. The next core element or mastery of de-stressifying is mastering your emotions rather than allowing them to master you, because our buttons get pushed and the chemicals and hormones come in and it's fight or flight, and then we're in and it's too late. We say something we regret, or we do something we regret. And I know there's a way for us to like be our best version of that. And there's lots of tools that I share, because normally we say, what would Jesus do? What would Buddha do? This is where you get to ask, what would the best version of me do right now? The part of me that has, spontaneous right speech, spontaneous right thought, spontaneous right action. What is that version of me going to do right now? The next level is communication, conscious communication. I feel if we can learn to consciously communicate, I can request for you to help me meet my needs. And that changes everything, rather than me saying, well, if you loved me, Liz, you'd know what I need.
Man. Why can't you read my mind?
And the last one is Dharma, discovering our purpose, finding our true meaning here. So if we can really cultivate our awareness, our needs, our emotions, our communication, and on our purpose, our Dharma, then we will live a life of grace, greater and greater ease, sleeping at night, having more things that we want, serving other people, and really living at the highest possible vibration.
Yeah, super resonant. And just a lot of things I teach, very, very, very similar. And I love other people's packaging. I love other people's, the way they put it together. And I was actually taking notes while you were saying that. I'm going to get in this book.
Nice. And even Martha Beck wrote a beautiful testimonial for it.
Oh, cool. She is hilarious, and you are hilarious. It's funny, everyone, like we were talking earlier, how people are going, like people's access points to things are going to be different. For me, give me someone who's entertaining, and I'm listening. I am sticking around, and I'm getting the lesson, so I really enjoy that about you. So, is there anything I didn't ask you that you wish I would have? Or anything, knowing that this is an audience that listens to a podcast called Untamed the Wild Soul Woman, anything that feels important for you, David G., to share before we sign off?
Yeah, I think a journey of constant reinvention is a beautiful thing. I don't think we have to make excuses for it or act like it's not happening. Reinventing ourselves is a beautiful line by Lao Tzu. When I let go of who I am, I become who I might be. And I think that the greatest accomplishments that I've made in my life, personal accomplishments, and the deepest fulfillment that I have had is truly when I have let go of a dream that I've been holding on to for a really long time, and it just because it was familiar, not because it was even serving me after that. So I would want to encourage you, wild women, to own their impact, to step into their power, to lean in the direction of their dreams, to let go of stuff that's no longer serving them. And I believe one of the best ways to really start that process is by connecting to the stillness and silence that rests within. And there's another beautiful line by Lao Tzu is, do you have the patience to wait until your mud settles and the water is clear? Do you have the patience to wait until the right action arises by itself? So I'm a believer in planting those seeds, letting go, releasing outcomes, and then leaning in. You got to take that step. We can have, we can watch The Secret a million times and we can read that book a million times, but we have to take the step. So we can have all the intentions in the world, but if you're going to sit on the couch and you're going to complain that you're not meeting the man of your dreams or the woman of your dreams, who are you going to meet on the couch? The plumber? The male person? You still got to step outside into the street and take that step. So I would just want to encourage all the wild women listening to this. When the universe calls you, say yes.
I almost don't even want to say anything. I just want to drop the mic and get the hell out of here because that was so good. Thank you so, so much. It's davidji.com. Just your name, right? DAVIDJI?
That's it.
davidji.com. Everything, all the meditations, all the books, your access point to David G is that website. So go there. Thank you so, so much. And we will talk to you later.
Yeah, thank you, Liz. Namaste.
I was working way a lot and not training.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it
God.
wasn't, we all go through that, especially
Yeah.
as entrepreneurs that are really doing it. But the problem that I had, and this was interesting, instead of my working out being all about the cuerpo or the body and the physical, the issue was I wasn't upholding my word. And if I stop upholding my word, then I start to stop upholding my word with eating and all these other things. And it's like a spiral effect. So I'm working really hard, then I'm not doing my training. And then it was like this cascade effect. And ultimately, I just had to say, you can't work that much. So what? Your business, quote unquote, suffers, or you don't get this thing done. But you are getting these other things done that ultimately, if you look at the long picture, you actually are more productive and you're happier.